All right. Well, hey, everybody. Nick, Brandon, and Barrett here. Welcome to Amongst Friends podcast. We are doing a pre recorded session today. We've got several topics we want to talk about and just general conversation. So, how's it going, everybody?
Going pretty
Good.
good. This rainy weather has got me real relaxed
This
outside
This is
is
the
of.
best weather.
not not in a bad way, right? Not like in a depressed.
No, no. I'm more of a hermit slash homebody anyway. So like, if anything, it just makes me happier knowing that there's something in the weather that's convincing me to stay home.
hmm
It's like I've got a reason to instead of just being lazy.
I'm the same way, I think. It's like when it's sunny out, I'm like, I should probably go out there. And I feel like guilty for not not. But yeah, when it's
Rain
rainy, I'm like
washes
this.
away all the guilt,
Yeah.
all the guilt of going to
Hey,
do anything.
hey, write that down. Those are
Like,
song lyrics
cancel
right
the
there.
plans. It's raining.
Like how does
We're not
that
going anywhere.
like you work from home? So how does that bother you, or how does it affect you?
Um, doesn't. I mean, it probably makes it like on a rainy day specifically, you mean? Or just
Yeah,
weather?
well, I mean, just I guess just in general.
I don't know. I like it. I like working from home. I'd have to the rest is situational, you know. The harder part about working from home just that comes to mind is when the kids are out of school and they're all in there doing their thing. It's like a little it's frustrating, not because they're home. It's because it's like, well, I'm just in this other room
Yeah,
working and I want to be in there, and I kind of get distracted just by that, just very knowledge that they're in the house.
yeah,
um
Hmm.
can kind of make it feel like a bummer that you have to work, where maybe going into an office or going into a workplace wouldn't you wouldn't think about it as much. I don't know.
I know it's not exactly the same thing, but it's like a similar feeling that I have with having like a game room or an office like separate to everything. Like I like the setup of playing games at my desk and stuff, but when I'm down here, I feel like totally shut off from everything,
hmm
and there is like that feeling of maybe I should be doing something else or like or at least spending time with people more. Um, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
like I said, at the same time though, like I don't like sitting on the like I don't know if it's just like the distance from the screen or what it is, but I don't really, or it's just the way sitting on the couch makes me feel. But I don't like playing games as much in that setup as I do at a computer desk.
yeah. I feel the same, Brandon. Like, even though like my game room is just the same room or a room on the same level of the house, like yours is a lot more like separated from everything. But still, whenever I'm in here, it feels like just very separated from everything. Like, I feel bad to be in here playing games like while my wife and kid are at home and running around. Like, it just still feels very separate. So I've been some of my consoles and stuff are in our living room, and I've been playing in there, and like have been stopping the urge from just moving my PS5 in there because it's in here just chilling, gathering dust right now. But yeah, I don't know. I've gotten to the point where I don't like being so, I don't know. Growing up, I've secluded myself and played games, and I'm at the point now where I don't really like being alone while I'm playing games. I don't know. Just
Yeah.
for
I get it.
me,
I feel the
it
same
was
way.
like whenever I would skate growing up, like it sucked skating by yourself, no matter what. Like, even if the person that was hanging out with you didn't skate, like, and you're skating, it
hmm
just there's no one there. I don't know. I don't know. It's just lonely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know for me too. Like I said, with the gaming from the couch or something, like I almost get too comfortable. Like it makes me want to sleep or something, depending on like my posture.
Yeah.
And like that's a like not only gaming, but like I usually read comics and stuff from my tablet, and usually the only time of day I have to do that is right before bed. So then I'll try to do it like sitting in bed, and like I said, just too comfortable, and ended up falling asleep before I even read anything. So I've been trying to figure out a better way of doing that, and it seems like I'm most alert when I'm like sitting at my desk like this. So it's seems like that's the best time to do those things.
I feel the same way you guys do. It's a little better now. Like me and Milo are essentially sharing the office room. So we've got like TV in here, and then we've got the monitor and play like we've got two PlayStations. So he'll be in here sometimes when he'll be playing, and I'll just be sitting over on the bed playing on the TV, and that's nice. Um, but yeah, it's sometimes he'll be in the living room watching something. I'll be in here by myself, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. It just feels empty. Even though it's like you got a great setup and all this stuff, but it'd be nice if there was a way to just, you know, have everybody with you at the same time. But sometimes it's cool though because we'll all be playing games, right, at the same time. So everyone will just call out at some random point, "Love you guys," and
Yeah.
everybody's playing something, and it's like then you still this has this sense of community or whatever. But we know that we all got to have our games. But I have considered like moving the TV that's in the game room out into the living room and just the living room TV here. Then you're
Didn't
just being playing back to back. But I'm like, I don't know. It seems
Yeah.
excessive, you know?
we've done that a couple times where like upstairs I've got a computer connected to the TV, but I've also got the PS5 and the Xbox up there. And typically on the weekends, like that's when my wife will be playing The Sims or something on that computer. And I'm like, well, I want to play the PS5 or the Xbox. I've got an extra TV that's just like in a closet that I'll bring out and literally set up in the living room right beside the TV so that we can at least be in the same room and playing together. And um, I think last week we brought out my daughter's TV to the living room because it's easier to move than the one I have in the closet. And she saw it out there and like was excited about it. And we had turned on like one of her videos or something to watch after I'd got done playing, and like I think she was kind of the mind that we were going to keep it in there, and almost kind of like contemplated it because for whatever reason, like the past 6 months or so, she doesn't like sleeping in her room with like the TVs on or something, which normally isn't a problem. So we're just like, okay, well maybe we'll just move it out of there and we'll keep it in the living room.
I've
Yeah,
almost
I
always
think
had a dual gaming setup, like two
Yeah,
TVs, everything on each TV. We used to, our when we moved in this house, our living room had it. We had two entertainment centers, two TVs, and the whole 9 yards. And then we ended up like right around being here for like a year and a half. Me and Kanan decided that we didn't need so much room for a bedroom. So we made this room was our bedroom. My game room right now was our bedroom. And our like the big bedroom of the house with the bathroom connected to it became my game room. And I had it all. I missed that setup because, I mean, I had
yeah,
TVs mounted on each wall with the game systems mounted under them,
oh,
and then
nice.
entertainment centers under that had all the or no entertainment centers. I think I just had all my shit floating. So everything was on the
yeah,
wall with no entertainment centers, and I had a blue curtain behind one TV and a red curtain behind the other TV. So it was like red versus blue and like lights on it. And I don't know. I've always had me and Kanan have always had like a double setup. So we each have a TV. We each have each of our own things on it, and that was a lot of fun.
yeah.
Um,
I can't remember if we actually played anything like together, but I
mhm.
remember at least once that I'd brought my PC over and set up in there in that room, and like I
Yeah,
think that night I was like playing Jedi Fallen Order. But I want to say there was like something like we all played together. Maybe it was Destiny or something.
Might have been Destiny. Noah came over and used it a lot. So like Noah was the one
Yeah.
that mainly used that TV, but he hated because I usually if I mount a TV on the wall, I mount it kind of high because I like to just sit back and it'd be I don't know. And he hated that. He needs it like right here. But um we I mean we I've still got pictures on my phone with like it all set up and nice. And my big like case with all my Dragon Ball Z figures was in between each TV, so it was like separated. And I've got a picture on my phone somewhere where I've got Halo on each of the TVs, and it's all like, I don't know, it looked awesome. Just
Yeah.
a prime time of a game room.
I think eventually, like something similar to that's what I'm going to be working on down here. Like, I'm going to get um, like a. I think I got enough room on this wall to get like a 8 foot desk, and I'm going to eventually bring both the PS5 and the Xbox down here, and that way, Bryson and I can both like set up in here at the same time.
Yeah,
So I think she's
that'd be sick.
eventually wanting to start streaming too. I think, depending on the game and everything. But yeah, I'm excited to start working on that whenever we get the funds to do it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I need to get a small sofa for this office. And like that would be great because then we can just kind of chill in here. Because I love that we have this space because like one of the only spaces in the house that I get to like exclusively, at least for the most part, maintain. Right, like, and I know like you guys have all your collectibles and stuff, so do I. So like, so obviously I don't want that stuff in the living room, right? Because it's just kind of, well, first of all, it's a living room, right, where you have company and stuff. But then second of all, it's like just exposed too many elements from my perspective, too much dust and debris and whatever. So I really like having a space for all this stuff. And even if it's just like a shelf, right, with stuff on it. But I don't know, it doesn't work for me being out in the open. So I like the idea of it, but yeah, if this could turn into like a lounge, like, with a small couch or something for a couple people to sit on, then I think I'd like it more, and then we'd probably hang out in here more. But yeah, I mean, we're, first world problems, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
Right. Yeah,
it's
that's
really
I
cool
feel like
having.
that. Sorry to cut you off. I feel
I
like
don't know,
that
go ahead.
too. Like I wish I had better seating situation here too because it's like a one-seater game room right now. So it's like I've got a recliner right here, but like
Ooh,
I don't know.
nice.
Just if there was like a couch or something that was more just
Yeah.
more welcoming for more people to come hang out, it'd be like that too. So like I come here like when I come in here when like guests are over or whatever, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like welcoming for like a lot of people because it's just like a tight game room that seats one or two.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's
Whenever
the
we
way
had it in
this.
the bigger bedroom, I wanted a couch behind me, but it just never
Hmm.
happened.
Yeah, that's the way this room is. Like, it's so small that I don't have much room in here. But I think once we get like a longer desk, that I'll have at least like 2 computer chairs. But to go with like the theme of the room I'm building, like I've essentially like modeled it after Vans with like checkerboard floor, and I really the the 50s diner look. So like I'm gonna try to get like a red um like a diner booth to kind of put on the wall behind me here.
It's sick.
That way if we are ever down here playing like Smash or something, we can all kind of sit on it and like play together. But
That'd be
I
cool.
know I need a lot of like foam in here for sound because it's like small room, floors are concrete, so there's like a bad echo in here at times.
Yeah. It's not too bad with the just recording, but I remember being in there in person, and yeah, it's also gets so cold in rooms like that are on the basement floor and stuff. But yeah. But yeah, I think a couch, not a full couch, just like a love seat or whatever, with two spaces. I think that's what this room is missing. Yeah. But on that note, we've got a couple topics. I think this kind of falls in line with hobbies. So like what are some of you guys well, first of all, let me ask a question. The topic is like the hobbies beyond gaming. What are some of those that y'all might have? But what do we define as a hobby, right? Like maybe I should know what that is, but I started thinking about things I routinely do or enjoy doing. I was like, I don't know, does that constitute a hobby? I don't know. So what do you guys think?
I mean, the way I see it, it's just anything like you're filling your free time with that brings you joy.
Okay, I like that. Good answer. Good answer, man. Good answer. What do you think, Barrett?
I think Brandon said that well. That's what I would say. Like things that you're doing, whenever you've got time that, yeah, you like. I don't know. I could reword that. I could change the words in that, but
Get your
You
I don't know
thesaurus
how else
out.
to describe it. That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I've
So what's some of those things for you guys? I mean, I know we all have families, so I think hanging out with our families, that's why I asked kind of. It was like, is that a hobby? Uh, More or less, sure. But
mm,
we all have specific things with that or beyond that you're into.
you want to go
I know
first,
you do.
Brandon?
Well, I haven't
I
I
have
haven't gotten
too many.
to I haven't gotten to as much lately, but like I used to just love going out and shooting basketball. Just
Mm,
that was probably the most like um, mind freeing thing I've been able to do because it's something I can just like zone everything else out and just concentrate. Um, haven't been able to as much lately. I mean, partly due to work schedules and stuff like that, but outside of that, really like reading comic books when I can find time to. The 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 issue I have there is like I'm somewhat of a completionist, so when it comes to like Marvel or DC, uh, the library is so extensive, and I always struggle like where to start on stuff because always want to read everything from the beginning, even though like comic books aren't essentially that's not necessary because so many different people write story arcs for the same characters. So usually when like there's something that's referenced, that there'll be like an asterisk or a note there to tell you're missing something. But I still struggle with that. But I think I'm
Yes, comic books are not good for that type of OCD
no, it's
because
not.
there's like 500 endings and 500 beginnings and then 500 spin-offs.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's also like the weirdest thing when people complain about like movie adaptations of like comic book characters
yeah.
because there are certain characters like Superman or Batman that have specific character traits, but at the same time there's been so
There's
many
versions that
different
don't.
yeah there's so many different writers to those characters that like there's probably some version of this character that didn't act this way, or
Hmm.
maybe this writer skewed it a little more in one direction versus the other. So it's like sometimes there are those issues when it comes to like casting and stuff like that, where it's like, okay, maybe you're being a little too rough. Like there's so many different interpretations of this, and people view this in so many different ways that like maybe it's not just like the one view that you have of it, and it's okay for things to be a little bit different.
Hmm. That's a good point.
Outside of that,
Yeah, comics.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was saying with comics, that's so widely accepted. Like you go, if you're familiar with comics at all, it's like there's so many versions and renditions and art styles, origin stories. I mean, there's like I don't know if you read like or familiar with um the the Batman Who Laughs
Yeah.
comic where it's like what is it like the Joker becomes Batman or Batman becomes Joker. It's been a while since I read it, and then it's like this whole Earth 193 whatever.
Yeah.
um but it's like you look at that and it's just like people are like, oh cool, well this is interesting. But heck, a movie comes out that has a different costume or something, or slightly changes the powers or the personality um in a way that's much more minor than that. So people are like, this is just not keeping true to the comics.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the comics are a hot mess. Like they are a soap opera of storylines at this point. And that's fine. But it's just like there's no like how come like when a movie comes out you don't look at it and go, oh, this is just some different timeline, and I'll see I either like the
Yeah, why is
timeline
it
or I don't.
acceptable for a comic book
Yeah.
but
I
not acceptable for a movie?
well,
Yeah, I don't know.
I think part of that's, and this isn't like directly to the viewer, but I think it's the cost. And not to diminish the artwork or anything, but it's so much
Hmm.
cheaper and quicker to produce a comic book that you could
Yeah.
produce so many of the same character in a certain time frame. Where it's like
Hmm.
movies typically take 2 or 3 years to make, and
Mm-hmm.
and the way that they license stuff out, like usually there's only one movie being made about this character, so it's like I guess people expect a more definitive version.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
That
been
makes
my
sense.
one issue with like the Marvel movies versus the DC movies. I don't necessarily always agree with all the choices they make for Marvel movies, but I at least know there's a plan there, and the fact that they're all connected, even if something changes along the way. Whereas like the DC movies, it's like it doesn't feel like there's as much of a direction, and it's like when they released Justice League, it's like they saw the success of what the Avengers was, and like, well, we need to do that, but then they kind of like skip steps where it's like, okay, there was like 5 or 6 Marvel movies before the Avengers came out. Whereas like Justice League had Man of Steel, and I think that was it. Maybe Wonder Woman might have been before then, but it was just like they just like jumped straight to the team up without fleshing out the characters first. And I think DC kind of releases stuff more similar to how a comic book would release, in the sense of
Mm-hmm.
like right now there's the Joker movies going on, like this Batman movie with Robert Pattinson's going on. They're not connected in any way. And so like they are releasing more like a comic book, but I think from a viewer standpoint it's a little more confusing to figure out, okay, what's connected, what isn't, does that even matter? Or when you're recasting characters so close to movies being released, that it just gets confusing and cloudy.
Yeah, I think the only thing, a lot of that doesn't bother me. The only thing that I mean, none of it bothers me, but the thing is, once you get a movie you like, let's say with DC, my only concern becomes, okay, is this one and done? Am I going to get more of this? Where typically with Marvel or really any series, you're like, okay, if you liked it or you didn't like it, you know that if you get more, it's going to be within that universe or style. And like, I really liked most of the Batman, the most recent one with Robert Pattinson. Like, I thought like visually at least, and it was just incredible, and a lot of the direction was awesome, like the car chase scene and stuff. But then you see them prioritize these other movies or series or relaunches and stuff, and you go like, okay, well, that's cool they're doing that, but like, what about this? I want to see more of this space, this more of this universe and stuff. And you go like, okay, you just don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And so you almost don't get comfortable when you do see something you like, because it's like, okay, well, I don't know I don't know what the rules are, you know.
Yeah.
Is that what Batman is from now on? Is it not? You know, and I guess it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But from an entertainment perspective,
That
I find it a little.
that's definitely the problem I have with it. Um, but then on the other end of things, where with Marvel, it's like a lot of that, you know, they're going to follow up with, or you know, they've got a
Yeah.
plan going forward. But it's almost like an embarrassment of riches, where there's been so many now. Like maybe there's not a specific formula, but a lot of them follow similar formulas. So it somewhat becomes predictable. Um, but I've been having more fun with the TV series from Marvel lately. Like
Mm.
the Agatha series right now is like one of the better things I've seen from them.
Mm.
And it's
That's
cool
awesome.
how they've been able to do that by pulling out, like, if you're a comic reader, yeah, you probably know who the characters are, but like they're pulling out obscure characters and able to make TV shows based on them. So it's nice to be able to jump deeper into like a lot of the lore. And one that, like, I guess that goes into like one of the other hobbies, is watching YouTube videos of like breakdowns and stuff like that. And you can go through a video of like a recap video of pretty much each episode you watch, and the recap's like just as long, if not longer, than the episode, because they're pointing out all these different Easter eggs. And it just, I guess it goes to show like the level of attention to detail that they go into with some things. Outside of that, like
Yeah.
I guess one other hobby I would note is, and I'm not going to say this is necessarily video game related, but it's adjacent, where like a lot of the sports games I've played have options to like import images and stuff. So um, a lot of my spare time used to be taken up by like using stuff like Photoshop and Illustrator, making custom logos or like custom like uniforms or something like that. Um, I just like anything on the editing side, where like I'll mess around with editing videos. I know I told you, I think last week after the stream, Nick, how um, one of my curiosities lately has been how uh, I guess the appearance of modern movies, and like how, and some of it may be nostalgia, but like growing up, at least up until like HD became a thing, I feel like a lot of those movies had more heart. I don't know if it was necessarily from story writing, special effects, whatever it is. So like one of the curiosities I've had is like going back into like newer movies that have, you know, larger budgets, like a lot more CGI, and kind of going back in and using a few editing tricks to throw in like noise filters and stuff like that to kind of make like a newer movie look older.
Mhm.
So that's one thing I've been wanting to try out, and watch a newer movie with like all those filters and all those edits in, to kind of see how that turns out. Um, I don't know. I like messing with stuff like that, just editing things.
Yeah.
What about you, Barrett?
Do what?
What about you, man?
Um, I'm like, I've always had like a bunch of ridiculously like obscure, random, just pull it out of your pocket hobbies. Um, like growing up, I remember like some of the earlier stuff, like skateboarding caught me at like 10 years old, and I skated heavily for about 10 years, and then took some breaks on and off. And to this day, I still try and do that. Like I try and go out once a week, but it hasn't really happened as much. So I'm going out like once every 2 to 3 weeks to go skate and just try and like keep some of that muscle memory going. But like through my like teens, that was the only thing I cared about. Like I had other hobbies that started in that time, but like that was in the front of everything. Like I was a skater. I skate every day, go out first thing in the morning when you wake up and don't come home until, it's too dark to skate. Like walking everywhere. I've walked Cleveland, like our hometown, like I've walked it forwards and backwards and everywhere through it. And like, I don't know, which brought up like for me, like a lot of fascination with like architecture for skating. Like, I mean, I look at everything like it's a skate spot now. It's just ingrained in my brain to like see things in a different way from a different perspective like that.
Dude, I do that.
So
I do that
skateboarding,
so much where like I'm just like in town, but I bet I could tell slide on that. And I don't even.
yeah,
I don't even like.
dude,
I skated a little bit like when I was like early teens maybe, but like outside of that, my only interaction with skating is either from video games or YouTube or something. Um,
hmm
but yeah, even like through playing the games, like I typically like to play them more in a way that's more realistic instead of arcade. So like even me, like that's what I do. Like walking through town, I'm like, it's weird. Just like that's the first thing that your mind goes to on
yeah.
various obstacles you see.
My brain is like doing flips and stuff. It's like I don't know, uh, but yeah, like skateboarding, I would have to say first and foremost because it's something I think I'll always have a love for. I'll always have like it's my sport essentially. Like I never really liked sports ball in any form or fashion, and am very sarcastic whenever it comes to the subject. So like what you mentioned shooting basketball, and that's something that like I played basketball for maybe a year or two in elementary school. Just my parents put me in it because I was tall. It's like you're tall, you'll be good at it. And also you need some sort of like after school activity, so you're going to do this. But through that, my dad was a lot more hands on with like teaching me whenever I wasn't at practice, like teaching me the proper way to shoot, like taking me out to a basketball court at like a park or something, making sure that like my form is right and everything. So to bring that around, like I haven't picked up a basketball to shoot since I started working at my new job because there's a little basketball goal outside and a lot of the kids want to go play basketball all the time. So we'll play like 3v3s on one goal or 2v2s on one goal. And I've actually surprised myself because it's not something I've ever kept up with, but my brain is wrapped around it a lot more now. And like I'll throw off some ridiculous shots like on that. And I'm like, in a way, I'm like, I still got it. I don't know if I ever had it, but for some reason I still got it. So like that's been pretty fun. Uh, Another one that's like kind of come back up recently that was with me whenever I started in middle school, but it's not something I'm ever really consistent with. But yo-yoing, like
Yeah.
I I have
Forgot about yo-yos.
I've had like
Yeah.
two or three that I've had for a really long time. Um, I wish I still had some of the ones that I had when I was a kid because I had some super cool ones, but like unresponsive yo-yoing, so like where it's continuous doing like a bunch of string tricks and then you have to
Hmm.
bind it to get it to come back up. I've got one behind me that my stepdad let me borrow this.
Mm.
It's metal and
Oh, wow.
uh, really nice, beautiful color. Um, so like in middle school, I had a friend give me a yo-yo called a Fast 201. You could get them at like Walmart, and they were like really cool at the time for yo-yos as far as like what you could get at a retail store. I brought it home and I was playing with it. My stepdad I remember him liking yo-yos when I was a lot younger. He had this yo-yo called a cherry bomb whenever I was like in elementary school. And I remember him playing with it. So like he was like, "Oh shit, that's cool." Like and then he starts like this all waterfalled into like my stepdad finding forums on the internet. This is early 2000s, so like getting in a forum and becoming like someone that modded yo-yos. So he would literally, like, people would send him yo-yos. He would engrave the inside of them to give them a better response. So like they would sleep longer. They would, like, it got ridiculous, dude, and evolved into like us going to tournaments twice a year. We would go to Tennessee States and Georgia States, and it got to the point years after that where he was judging those tournaments, and it just became like a really cool, like, bonding trip between us. And probably, like, other than him teaching me skateboarding, those trips are probably some of the biggest reasons that we are so close, because we just had such a good time. Like, we would go out of town, stay at somebody's house. This is while I'm like in maybe early high school, um, and go to a yo-yo competition, and he would judge it, and I would just like hang out with all these random people that he knew from forums. Um, but I've had a really cool relationship with yo-yoing because it's never been anything I've been super serious about. But like, there's a there's a market for it. There's a whole community to it that's just really cool, and it's come back up recently because I pulled one out at work, and this kid was like, "Yo, is that unresponsive?" And him saying that, I was like, usually, or someone's like, walk the dog, or do the baby in the cradle, like, or do around the world. Is the three you always hear those. But this kid goes, "Is that unresponsive?" And he's like 13. I was like, bro, like, that's like, he said something that just let me know he knew what he was talking about. Turns out he had a yo-yo in his luggage, and they wouldn't let him have it because it's a metal yo-yo on a string. And uh, I ended up being able to talk to like administration about letting him get his yo-yo while he's like supervised. As long as he's around someone, he can use it. And been teaching him tricks and stuff, and it's just felt really cool that like something that's like literally like I'll pull it out when I'm bored, and like I know, like, I don't know, it's just a random thing at this point. I used to just play with one all the time.
Yeah, we lost him.
I
Oh
have
no,
no,
hopefully he's
I have no clue what happened.
His mic just killed the video.
eh, good thing this is pre-recorded. We can just edit this out.
Exactly.
I'll
Yeah, I just
pause.
want to make sure we don't lose. Well, we don't necessarily want to edit this out, but I'm more concerned that we're going to
There he
lose it.
is.
Is
I
it
have,
recording at all?
yeah, it's recording all that. I don't
Oh,
have
okay.
I have no clue what happened. Like everything just kind of like it didn't shut off. It
Maybe had a
just,
power surge. I don't know.
I don't,
I
yeah, I
guess
have
that
no
would have
clue.
affected everything. But
But
what
yeah,
is it?
so,
Okay, so wait,
like,
what does that mean? The unresponsive? I don't know if I understand what that is.
unresponsive mean, you know how like whenever you throw a yo-yo down, you do this to make it
Hmm.
come back up? It doesn't do that.
Yeah.
You have to bind the string and make it come back up when you want
Hmm.
it to. So like
Interesting.
it'll sleep. Oh, just throw it down. So like it'll sleep. It's spinning right now. It doesn't come up
Hmm.
when you do that. You have
So
to
what do you
like,
do? Create some kind
yeah,
of
you have
like
to like
momentum?
use the momentum of it against the string retention to get it to like catch itself and come back up. So
Oh,
that
cool.
way you can
Yeah,
do
I
as
never
much
heard of
stuff
this.
as you want. I'll show you sometime. Like,
Well, I
it's
can
hard to do sitting
appreciate it.
down, but like,
Yeah, no, I appreciate it because I had a period where I was into yo-yos and like I totally had forgotten about that. But for like a year or two when I was younger, and remember Yo Mega was this huge brand, of
mm-hmm,
course,
yep,
mainstream brand. But
Yo
yeah,
Mega Yo-Yos.
I was never good at it. Like I could walk the dog or I could do the, whatever. But I couldn't do anything elaborate. But still, it was so stimulating to
Mm-hmm,
throw the yo-yo and feel that vibration up the string. And so it's just even just throwing it into the air and then being able to catch it back was
mm-hmm.
just really enjoyable for a while. And now it seems like how incredibly archaic like a
Yeah,
yo-yo, right? Like it's
dude.
almost like I don't even know if my kids know really what a yo-yo is. Like,
I
you
re-
know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I think a lot of that like transferred over to the fidget spinner. Like,
see, dude, yeah, I was actually thinking of the fidget spinner, which those should still be a bigger
I've
deal.
got qualms.
well, like
I
I
Great.
remember it's the yo-yo that takes no skill and is just literally a fidget thing. And I remember
Dude.
working at Vans and people coming in and buying skate bearings.
yeah.
They called them
Mhm.
something. They had some stupid name for them for fidget spinners. Like that community called skate bearings something else. And I mean, this takes most fidget spinners take one bearing, and they would come in and
Mhm.
buy a box of 8 bearings, and they would spend like 190 80 70 80 $90 on the best skate bearings that you can buy that are built for park skating for 8 of them, just to put one of them in their fidget spinner because they wanted the fastest smoothest one. I'm like, bro, you could get away with buying like these $25 set. I don't know, I just and
Yeah.
I've got issues. I have
I,
one right here in front of me. Like my stepdad's giving them to me just to fuck with me. So like I have like a few sitting around just for like shits and giggles now. But whenever these were first out, I'm like, that's just a yo-yo that doesn't take any hand-eye coordination. It's
Well,
just
the only reason I brought it up
just so you
is
can.
the only reason I brought it up
Sorry.
necessarily was that when when I was younger, my brother collected them, and so I knew a bunch of different people that all had them, and it just became a thing where like you'd be standing around and people would be yo-yoing. It's just a like in casual conversation. It's just a way for like stimulation.
Hmm.
Like people could totally like do it second nature and still
Yeah,
talk and
I could
everything.
look at
Yeah,
you and talk and be like playing with the yo-yo, and there's no like,
it was like
it's a
the
muscle memory,
yeah.
hand-eye coordination.
It's like standing
Like
around in a circle, like smoking,
that's
drinking,
yep,
like whatever, hacky sack,
that's what we
whatever.
did.
It was just
Yeah, that's another one. That's uh, a lot of like hand-eye coordination skills are like things that I like was more prideful with growing up as far as hobbies. So like yo-yoing was one that was with me from middle school through most of high school, and then now it's just kind of like I always have a yo-yo with me. Like I've got them in my car, I've got one here, like but like, and I've got like a hobby bag that has like little bits of everything that I just keep on me. But um, hacky sacks, I mean, in high school and while like I was doing the band stuff, um, that was big. Like we'd be outside smoking and playing hacky sack, or at school we'd be, I mean, always before homeroom, before class and stuff, before school started, there'd be a hacky sack circle, and we would play numbers and get up into the just ridiculous shit. Now I'm not nearly as good at it, but I can keep up. Um, and then fingerboards, like in middle school and high school it's tech decks, but now it's like I have like more like sophisticated fingerboards that are like actual like a skateboard. It's like actual plies pressed together
yeah.
with foam tape, and there's little bearings in the wheels. And I played with those so much that like I just had to like I didn't really get a actual fingerboard until a few years ago, but I always loved tech decks. And then I learned that there's a whole community of like a more, you know, there's a grown up community for that. That's like we
Yeah.
didn't play with tech decks, we play with fingerboards, and it's more legit. And you get one, you're like, holy shit, this is way better. I
Yeah.
get it. I'm up here now. I leveled
Well,
up.
that's what I was going to say. Like those three different things, like yo-yos, hacky sacks, and fingerboards. Like there was something I always owned. I always owned one, and
Hmm.
would dabble here and there, but like was never really good. But I was good enough to know the difference in quality, to be like
Yeah.
almost like gatekeepy about it. Like somebody'd bring
Yeah.
out something and be like, "Man, this is trash. Like I don't even know why you're using this." But like I was never good at it, but good enough to know what was quality or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Those I didn't learn until like in the last 5, 6 years, I think. I was fine with calling any sort of fingerboard a tech deck up until then. And then I learned like you can't call a fingerboard a tech deck. That's disrespectful.
Well, like even now,
Like that's a brand.
like Hot Wheels has started making their own fingerboards, and
And those are good. They
well,
feel great.
some are like we've got some of the Marvel ones just because of the designs on the boards, but like
Hmm.
you can't change the wheels on any of them. Like you can't even
Yeah,
like loosen or tighten them,
that
and it's
sucks.
just like
I didn't try to mess with one, but I did
yeah,
like ollie with one and did like a few kickflips and stuff. With one of the kids at work has a Star Wars one, and I hadn't used one of the Hot Wheels ones, and they've just got a good weight to them, and they pop really good. So like I don't know. The yo-yos and the tech decks and stuff have won me a lot of cool points at work with the kids
yeah,
because it's like a pocket trick that I can pull out and kind of like blow your mind if you're not aware of how good people can be with these things. I'm like mediocre in the level in the scale of like actual professionals that are yo-yos and tech decks. Um, I can like I can do a lot of those things, but I'm not like pro status. I'm just like enough to where you're like, wait, holy shit, you're actually like you know how to do that. And that's like kind of I don't know. That it's been cool to go back through that like at work because I mean, I'll go through stages with a tech deck. If I pick one up, it's like I get sucked in. I'm I'm just that's what I'm doing. I've spent like just a few years ago, I think me and my other friend Nick were over here and we played with a tech deck on the kitchen table or the living room table for like maybe 4 hours. Like just sitting there, tech decking, dude.
Hey, man.
It was a
let's
good
not
time.
Hey,
you also use them as a way to signify when somebody's time or somebody's turns over in Magic as well.
Yes, yeah, I'd pull it out and I'd start playing with a tech deck during
Like, oh,
Magic.
you've been taking too long. Now it's time to play.
Uh,
yeah.
which I mean, that's a good segue to another one, like trading card games.
Hmm.
It's not gaming; it is game related, but it is kind of a big thing, like Pokemon cards in elementary school. That I'll always have some sort of draw to want to buy Pokemon cards, no matter what. Only really recently has it come up that I want to play like the trading card game in the last couple years, but at work now, a lot of the kids play Pokemon, um, which is uh, which is really cool. Magic, Lorcana, Disney's Magic, like I love those. I'll always have like a soft spot for like trading card games like that if there's other people that are into it and it's not too sweaty because I definitely don't like I'm not I've tried going to local card shops to be a part of that community and play, but that's what sucks the fun out of it for me. I like more of a casual, just
Yeah.
friends sitting around, no one's taking it too seriously. Um, got to
Is
draw
that
the
what
line with
sweaty
that.
means? Like I've heard you've made that term. You've used that term before, like when something's sweaty, and I like it. I don't necessarily know what it means though. Is it just mean like that
Yeah,
it's taken really seriously,
yes. When people take
pretty
something
much?
so seriously that they're like
You're sweating
they're
over it.
yeah,
Yeah,
like the
got
kids
you.
that
Okay.
that term really comes from like the kids that are playing Call of Duty and shooters and stuff that are just like just fucking drop shot and slide shooting like just constantly just making you not have fun because they take this game way too seriously.
Mhm.
That's how I use the word sweaty.
It's one of
So
I
those
like
got you.
feelings like there's a time and a place for this, and unless you're like in a like an official tournament or something like
yeah, you're playing, you're like, oh,
maybe
I
you
didn't know
shouldn't
the
take
fucking
this too
league was
serious.
watching right now. Holy shit. Like, let me step my game up because ESPN's here to make sure that I'm
Yeah.
getting a fucking sponsorship.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's my issue with
That's
card
funny.
games is like I like playing them. I've probably got the most into uh, Pokemon, but you know, throughout the years I've been in Magic and Lorcana now. But I mean that's my problem with it. It's like I like playing more casually where Pokemon and Lorcana, like the specific characters or the specific cards you have. Like I like building decks with the characters I like, not necessarily so much the mechanics of the card. And
Yeah,
that
because it's the
that's
meta.
where that's where I kind of got lost in Magic is that I didn't have any connection to any of the characters or the creatures, And yeah, like when you
You know
when you
what?
start playing, like you get into that meta of like, especially Pokemon, where it's like I like filling out a deck with like I said, all the characters I like, and sometimes that may be too many cards or at least too much variance. Where like in a meta, it's like you might have 5 or 6 specific Pokemon, and it's like the same card 4 times.
Hmm.
And there's a level of that meta where it's like it's just not fun anymore. Like you're trying to like you're trying to beat the system instead of enjoy the actual act of it all. I'm not
Yeah,
saying you
that
can't enjoy it that way. It's just the way my mind perceives it. It's like, okay, then it's essentially like, okay, now when you start getting into the meta like that, it's like, okay, now you've turned this into like chess, where it doesn't necessarily matter what the pieces are. You're just trying to check the king, and the
hmm
details surround it no longer matter. So it's just you're changing the
yeah,
form that you're playing it.
That's how I feel about speed runs for games. Like
yeah, yeah.
to me,
That's
it's
sweaty.
like it's sweaty, but I just don't appreciate it. Like, okay, I can
Mhm.
appreciate the work and skill that it requires because it's quite a bit. Like in principle, I can appreciate that. But like what it's doing to a beloved game, like is totally
When you're
against the
breaking it.
entire reason I play it. Yeah, I'm like I play this to get immersed, to experience the creativity. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's stimulating as well, and it requires skill and interaction. But when it comes to like you got to jump over this wall to like spam glitch through it, and that'll
Yeah,
shave 15 minutes off your time to get to the end, or even ones that don't use glitches. I'm like, you're just diluting it to its pure essence of just get to the end, right? And it's like, man, that's just not what it's about for me, like
Yeah,
just getting to the end. It's the whole experience. So anyway,
I feel
yeah.
mostly the same way, and it's probably more dependent on what the game is itself. Like Mario
yeah,
or Sonic, I can understand like a speed
hmm
run in that. Even Halo
yeah.
even Halo to an extent, I can understand they're just bragging rights with somebody. Oh, I beat this.
Your mic died.
uh,
It's flashing.
There you go.
I don't know why it does that,
it's
but
all good.
like even
So Mario
Halo
Sonic.
to that extent, as far as like bragging rights with somebody. It's like, oh, I beat this level on legendary faster than you did. But
Yeah.
but yeah, once you start getting into the level of finding glitches in order to speed run, like at that point, I think that's too much.
Yeah. With what you're talking about
Much
with
for
like
me.
your connection to like Magic and like Pokemon and Lorcana, where you like you care about those characters and you want to build something around like what you like. And I feel much the same with Magic. Where like now my fondness for like I have for some of the decks that I built, like I really like some of the mechanics that are in my decks. Like I love the way they play. I don't try to build more and more and more. I'm not like super into it. But if someone wants to play Magic, it's like I'm playing my blue black rogue deck. I love the way this one plays. It's got fun mechanics. Like, but I will bridge shuffle the shit out of that deck just to watch somebody cringe because I don't care about those cards. And my logic is it's going to do the same thing when I play it, even if it's a little curved. I don't give a shit. There's no cards in this deck that
Yeah.
are worth 50, $100. Like, and I don't look at magic cards like value either because I'm not buying a bunch of cards. I don't have a lot of bulk. But like, I love Magic is the one trading card game that I will bridge shuffle my deck and just watch all those nerds cringe because they're like, "What are you doing?" And then we'll play Pokemon. I pull out my Pokemon cards and they're like, "You bridge shuffle those too?" I'm like, "Hell no, I'm not doing that to my Pokemon cards. What are you talking about, dude?" So like, I don't
I
know. I've got different relationships with those, but it's just still like things that I don't know. I
I
really
think I
enjoy.
think that's a different issue I have is like just the because I do collect cards, but it's definitely almost two different mediums at that point. And
Hmm.
the collecting aspect of it has seeped its way into the game part of it in the sense that you're pretty much like you're pretty much in a lottery when it comes to buying packs of cards now. Just because like there's different rarities on stuff, so that means the percentages of whether you'll get the card or not changes.
Mhm.
And I would prefer it if like some of those trading card games like that just release pretty much like the whole set together. And then
Just
at that
buy
point
the
you just
singles.
yeah, because then at that way like to some extent like depending on the like I said rarity is one thing, like they artificially choose what the what the percentages of are. And on the other hand, because there is a meta in the game, and if one card's like unbalanced, the price of that card's going to go up now. So it's like almost like pay to win to a certain extent there
Mhm.
too. So I think I would be able to enjoy it more the way I like to play casually if all those cards were just available at all times, or at least easily accessible.
Yeah. Well, they're rarities in that, like, you can buy all those cards in singles. I wish there was a more better way to like group buy a full set, but like the
Well,
rarities just make it so unaffordable to
I
buy.
I think that's
Like,
where the like the foils and hollows and stuff come in, where it's like they should release like a base set that's like no special editions of any of the cards, just the base set of
especially
cards.
if you're playing competitively and you just want
Yeah,
the cards to play,
yeah,
not necessarily collect. There should be like a playing edition and a collector's edition or
yeah,
something like that for that's affordable for the people that just want to play the game, and a rarity system for the people that want to collect, like
yeah.
the fancier cards or something. Would just make it more, would make that environment more like welcoming, I feel like, because things like Magic, bro, like yeah, that is the most pay to win trading card game there is. It is stupid. You got money, you spend you're willing to spend $1,000 on a deck, you win. Like that's how that goes. And it generally, I mean, it just it's very frustrating whenever it comes to like the competitive aspect to it, because yeah, it is fun, but the people that take it that seriously and are that sweaty suck the fun right out of it. And
Mm.
if you got the money to spend on the cards you want, you win. I like kind of where you're going with that, Brandon. Like where if there was like a base set that was like all these are fucking plain, maybe it just has text on the cards what it does. Sure, would make it not as fun because that the art is part of the fun. But yeah, I don't know.
Especially when they release so much. Like that's the other aspect of it too, where it's like I like playing, I like collecting, but if there's a new set every 3 to 4 months, it's just
Yeah,
like
count
financially,
me out.
it's not possible to have every like to collect everything.
Hmm.
And like I said, back to me being like somewhat of a completionist, like I like to have everything just for the sake of having the full thing.
That's how I'm gonna feel about that Final Fantasy set. I will be after that one. I will be after it. I will not be shuffling those cards like a maniac. Like those will have a binder. Like I am excited for that. Like your mic again. Um,
Somebody said that was supposed to be a full set. Like it
yeah,
wasn't like most of the secret layer drops have all been like 10 or 15 random cards, but like
yeah.
from what
This
I
will be
understood,
the whole set is Final Fantasy stuff. They've been talking about it for like 2 years now that it was going to happen, and now we're finally seeing it. So I'm glad that it's like more than just like a couple cards with new art that's Final Fantasy related. You know,
yeah.
I'm excited to see how like the equipments and that stuff work, and uh,
That mic,
that
that
mic
mic's
is
possessed by the
going
devil,
wild.
dude.
That looks like a short. Them Timu
You got
mics,
another
bro.
wire?
While he's fixing
All
that,
good.
I'll rattle off some quick ones that are like just to for the
Okay.
sake of honorable mentions. Um, listen to a lot of podcasts. Who doesn't? But
That's a
most
good
stuff I
option.
listen to are like either Star Wars related, or I listened to another one that's State of the Arc, and they just are really good, like intellectual people, dudes that are around my age that break down JRPGs, video games, just cool thematic stories, and they don't really talk about the game mechanics. They just talk about the story breakdowns, and I really enjoy
Okay.
that. And then and like the themes, overall themes, and how themes relate between things, and they just like make a lot of connections that are based on like reoccurring themes and things that is just like super interesting. Um, audiobooks. Whenever I was growing up, I loved reading. The reason I should have prefaced with all this. I was grounded a lot growing up, so like my parents would take my devices for not making good grades in school. So like a lot of the reason I like hand-eye coordination, twitchy stuff is because I didn't have my devices. So like I would read the Harry Potter books over and over and over. So like growing up, I really loved those, but now I've moved into audiobooks and just listen to Star Wars mostly and high fantasy stuff. Um, I've ran some D&D, not ran them, but been a part of D&D campaigns with a couple of my friends, and I enjoy that. After the character creation part, because I am terrible at that, but just being there to have a good time and play D&D with some friends is really what I'm there for. I'm not there for like being the best at creating a character, I guess. Um, uh, collecting. I worked at Hot Topic and Box Lunch for a long time. So like between those two stores, like I started like really start collecting like a bunch of figures and Funko Pops. I've had an ungodly number of Funko Pops, and I've dwindled it down now to a fraction of what it was. Um, so that was a big one. And then Brandon, you mentioned Photoshop, which just made me think like in the days when my stepdad was doing the yo-yo forums, I was on Pokemon forums for the games, and like just had even like role playing forums and stuff where we would just like create stories that were Pokemon related and like have like a whole like you pitch your dialogue and then someone like responds to it and you're just like responding to each other on a forum kind of setting, or like team building. But I would make Photoshop wise, I would do like on a forum you could have like a signature, so every time you posted you'd have like a picture that went under it, and I would make those for people. I'd make like trainer cards, and like I dabbled with a lot of Photoshop stuff and have like very, very little skill with it now compared to like all the tools. But I remember Photoshop CS2, like early days, just doing uh, stupid like Pokemon graphics, learning how to like chop photos and layer and all that stuff. So that one was pretty, uh, I don't know, a pretty big part of like my like early teens, whenever the internet was still like, I don't know, it was a different time, I guess,
I got in
back
trouble
in the
with Photoshop a few times when I was in college. I can't remember what class it was, but like I had one class that was like across the hallway from where Photoshop class was, and there were times like throughout the day that like the lab where the Photoshop classes were just open, and it was mainly for like students to go in there and use whenever. But like heck, I didn't have a Photoshop class, but I would just go over there and like screw around. Till like one day, like this like teacher came in, or like one of the professors came in and started like asking me a bunch of questions. And he finally got to a point where he's like, "Whose class are you in?" I'm like, I don't know. And he just like finally caught on to me, and
Great
it's
answer.
like, you can't be in here.
So smooth.
That's an answer I would have gave, dude. Yeah, just play stupid.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what his name.
uh,
I don't know what the
I don't,
guy's
I don't
name
even know
is.
how I got here. Yes. I don't know who I am. I can't remember anything.
that's
That's funny,
awesome.
dude.
Yeah,
What
that's
about
most of it for me.
yeah? What
I'll go
about
ahead. I'll wrap mine there. If you can keep going, I just wanted to like say I had a list to go through.
yeah? Now I want to hear what all of Nick's hobbies are.
Um, Yeah, no, this was an interesting one to think about. I guess first I went to a lot of the stuff y'all did, but there's a reason I asked about defining a hobby. I was like, okay, well, is that this? Is like what counts as that? But yeah, I mean, reading and writing, writing is a big one. Graphic novels, like you, Brandon, very much that. Cooking is a big one that I enjoy, or at least some of the time. I have to be like in the zone because cooking is a lot of work, from starting from buying the ingredients to cooking to cleaning, all that. And then if it doesn't go well, it's like so discouraging and disappointing.
I was
Even if you
in
do, I'm
culinary
sorry,
in
go ahead.
high school. No, sorry. I
Uh-huh.
was in culinary in high school and thought that that was my future. I thought culinary was my future. I was going to go to culinary school and become a chef. And this was I
Oh,
went
you're
through
such
that.
a ball.
I interviewed with Johnson and Wells for Louisville, Kentucky, for college. It's the only college interview that I ever did.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I thought that was it, but no, the chef that I had, our chef hated me, and I think that I just was so my heart was in it for so long because of that like resistance I was being met with chef. So I was like, "You're gonna hate me, and I'm gonna be the best student you've ever had. Just watch." And
Mhm.
that didn't
It's
happen.
usually how.
Uh,
It's a great start to a
he
story.
hated me. But I was a shithead fucking high school kid, so I mean, I can't blame him. But I learned a lot of stuff in that class as far as how to cook. But now I almost despise cooking, and when I am cooking,
Mm,
that's when I'm like, don't talk to me, stay out of the kitchen. I've got headphones in, or I'm listening to a podcast or like a video or something. Like, just let me zone out and do this.
mhm.
Now it's a chore that I'm just like, y'all have to eat again. Like, is it that time already? That's how I feel about it. Sorry.
No, you're good, dude. I feel all those ways about it too at times. Um, but it is I'm very much like, yeah, when I'm cooking, like don't get in my way, don't distract me. Like I like the multitasking and micromanagement of it. I actually do that really well when it comes to cooking. Like getting a complicated meal done. Like I made like Alfredo last night and like,
Mm,
baking the chicken while boiling the pasta, while making the sauce, while grating the cheese, while trying to keep everything clean at the same time. Like I can compartmentalize that really well. But I started cooking. I mean, I've always kind of just passively enjoyed cooking, even when you're making a grilled cheese as a teenager and making it like just right or whatever, and spending that time on it, making it extra buttery in the pan and stuff.
mm,
Um, but I worked, maybe we'll get to this later, but I did worked cleaning dishes at a couple restaurants, but then like kind of gradually moved into one of them, moved to being like a kitchen assistant and then essentially being a cook, without maybe ever getting that title. But uh, getting to do that, and I wouldn't say I'm like really technically good at cooking, but just have some really good principles when it comes to like, I don't know, trying to keep everything organized while you're cooking, trying to make sure you're tasting things and like trying to salt it just right, like little principles like that that go went a long way. And just generally knowing how to make something taste good. So yeah, I like cooking, and I like it if people enjoy it. Like that's the main thing. It's really rewarding for me if you make something and people really say, "Oh, it's great," and they have a second bowl of it or whatever. And I'm like the
that's
worst.
almost like a primal
Huh?
feeling too, though. Like
It
cooking and
is
feeding
like
people and like them
instinctual, yeah.
enjoying it. There's something about that that's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it comes from a place of like being a caretaker. It's like something instinctual.
Mm.
I 100% agree, and it's very satisfying. So I love when, yeah, people enjoy that, and yeah, it just gives me a sense of providing, for people and stuff like that. So yeah, I love that, and I love to eat good food too, right? And have things, get onions caramelized just right, get the season it just right and stuff. So if I salt something too much, I'm like, I do not handle it well. Like I'm just like it's essentially ruined. Like
Don't
if you
like
if you
fucking up.
salt, dude, I don't. I've I'm hard on myself with some things. So that's a big one. But yeah, yeah, I like cooking certain things I hate cooking. Like I don't know how to bake, like when it comes to mixing flour and letting dough rise, I've never understood how to do that right and stuff. But yeah, I really like to make stuff that tastes good. But a big thing for me, and I don't know if this is gonna sound weird, when I was thinking about this, the last thing I wrote, and I think the the, the most important hobby, I don't know if this is a hobby, but I like to pray a lot. Um, I don't know if that's a hobby, but I really do enjoy it. And it's something
Yeah.
that I do every day and multiple hours a week. And it's like a necessity for me. And like I won't necessarily get into like who or what I'm praying to or what I'm praying about. But yeah, just having a conversation, trying to converse or commune with something, I don't know, bigger than yourself, something cosmic,
Hmm.
and grow as a result of that in some way, or learn something or change. Yeah, that's something I do a lot. Like just as I'm going to sleep, I'll pray. And it's not like I necessarily fold my hands and like bow and close my eyes, but I'll just have this internal dialogue, or external, like if I'm walking or something like that. And yeah, just pray. Um, you know, think about what I want to learn, what I want to do, ask questions about like, is this right? Is this wrong? Like, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about the election? Why does that bother me? Why does this law bother
Hmm.
me? Like, why does this thing at home, like, why does that thing feel good? Why did we like doing this? And just like kind of philosophize, but then also try to have that, what I believe is a conversation with something, so that's a big thing for me. That's like a necessity. And like I realize if I don't find time to do that at some point, it's kind of like, oh, I need to unplug. Like I love video games, I love cooking, but if there's not some point where I can like kind of get introspective with that and be like and have that conversation and that thought process, I end up feeling off, kind of end up feeling lost. And like I missed some opportunity to develop, I guess, grow up and become more of like an adult or a person that I want to be and things like that. So all that I relate to like prayer and stuff. And it's something I really enjoy. Like it really stimulates me. It gives me like recently I had to drive to work for something, and I work every other week in Brentwood, Tennessee. It's like a 3 hour drive. And man, I had like this a great just prayed like the whole time and was just this like I had it's almost like almost got like a euphoric feeling from it. Like just a sense of peace and comfort and gratitude and stuff. And like I know like our wives and stuff do yoga and do different things like that. I think that's my yoga is like
Hmm.
prayer. And
Yeah.
it's really necessary for me to have like a good energy, good vibe, and to like continue being a good guy and not slip into just being a sarcastic asshole and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a big,
Yeah.
which I am and can be. But like the person, like my at me at my core, who I really deeply am, is the person who prays. You know, it's that's like
I
the
love that.
person you're left with when you're alone. It's just you and
Hmm.
yourself and who that person is, and then going, okay, how do I be that when I'm around people, or when I'm being a dad, when I'm being a husband and stuff like that, and think like that. So anyway, I don't know. I don't
Well,
know if that's a hobby,
it's I mean
but it's something
it's definitely like a form of meditation. Like
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I was
and
gonna say because like
that's like
that's
the same
something I probably
feeling.
should have.
That's the same feeling I get. Like that's like usually like the mind space I'm getting myself into. Like when I am playing basketball by myself. Like it's
Yeah.
essentially the same feeling, except like you said, you were doing it while you were driving, and it's just
Hmm.
it's a
Mm,
similar
yeah.
it's similar thing to me. Similar feeling.
Yeah, I've got
It,
like a pre-work thing that I do where
mhm,
like before work I go out and I walk 2 miles. I park at the
mhm,
park here in Charleston. I walk to the river and I'll meditate on the dock for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then
mhm.
I'll walk back to the park, and it's a mile there and a mile back. Um, so like, and in that time I'm usually listening to like an audiobook or something or a podcast like on the way there, and then I'll stop, take like 5 minutes before I start meditating, and then like go into like 10ish minutes of, and I'm still like in the early days of that, like practicing meditation, but something I probably could have put on my list because it is, I agree. I mean, it's something that you do whenever you're, not doing what you normally do. It's something that helps you keep yourself together. And whether you're like, zoned out on whatever else your hobby is, like I think prayer, meditation, some form of like centering for yourself is like super important. And it's taken me a long time to get to a point to where I'm comfortable with it and talking. I've always had this like big, I think, ego battle where I'm like trying to like just get over myself in a way that's like, this you it's something that is super important. And in the last like year or so I've been able to like kind of come more to terms with that.
I think that's great. And like, yeah, the way you guys described that, I think that's a big part of it. It's like, eventually you have to turn off the music, you have to turn off the video games, the movies, and you have to confront yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, or depending on your faith, be confronted by your God, your deity, whatever it is that you believe. And maybe it is just you think it is just yourself, and it's going to be different for everybody. For me, it's prayer because the faith I tie to what's happening in my mind, and the belief that I'm hopefully, and I have faith and belief that I'm in this conversation, or allowing God to be a part of the conversation I'm having with myself, right? And so, um, but realizing like at a certain point, you're like, I just stopped feeling good during the week, and I'm like, what is it? What is it? And I realized like I haven't like turned everything off and dealt with myself, and like been okay, been in a room by myself with myself. And when I say room, I mean it metaphorically. It just me in my mind and going like, "Hey, so what's up?"
You got to
And
turn
just being
off
like,
all the
"Oh shit,
distractions.
we got to deal with this. I got to ask how it's going, and I can't lie to myself because because as soon as you
Mm,
do, it's like, nope, that's not true. You don't feel that way, and it's sometimes I dread it, right? But because it is confrontational, and it makes you deal with things you don't want to deal with, or realize, I need to do this differently, or something like that. But you always, always, always is it necessary, and always do I feel better, and always do I feel happier, and that I can, or at least that I can become happier because I dealt with that thing. But the other side of that, just like philosophically, is not overthinking, and not letting prayer or meditation turn into a thinking session where it's like, hey, when I said that 3 years ago and that person didn't laugh as much as I thought they did they actually, were they actually annoyed by it? And realizing like, what are you even doing with that thought? Like, that is just such cancer for your mind. Like, shut the hell up. And like, just, but that's like part of the process of prayer to me, is like learning not to do that with myself.
mm.
Because it's just like essentially you're just abusing your own mind and creating scenarios that you can't know and stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway, I guess I
Person you're
guess
worried about thinking that has forgotten. You are criticizing yourself more in that moment than that person ever
dude,
did. Like, and realize, like, I
exactly.
get those intrusive thoughts too, dude. Like, I call it the shit that wakes you up at night, and you wake up and you're like, fuck, why did I say
Yes,
that?
I know,
Oh, that was so
dude.
stupid.
And,
Driving
and
down the road,
everybody
you're like, God, you're an idiot. Just like,
and
no.
everybody has it, but at a certain point, like, it's not even just that it wasn't a big deal. It's not even just that, that probably didn't matter to them, or probably was nothing. It's like, get over it. Forgive yourself.
Hmm.
You're fucking
Yeah.
you're imperfect. Okay. You know what? You're imperfect as the next person. And it's like, what would you tell Barrett or Brandon about this thought they had? Maybe they did say something rude. Okay, cry me a river. Like, move on. Are you more self-aware now? Are you less capable of being shitty? It's like, hopefully, but just having that dialogue with myself and God, and trying to come out the other side of it with some ounce of, I don't know, value, wisdom,
Mm.
growth, whatever you want to call it, and just something is
Yep.
more evolved, through that process,
Give yourself some grace. It's like, kind of how I put it. Like,
Yeah,
give yourself like, yeah.
learning grace, learning forgiveness, and realizing, at least, well, that everyone's going to learn something different through the process of prayer or meditation and stuff. But the things that, I come back to is just, realizing how necessary forgiveness is for me, for other people. And that was like, oh, and and then looking at the world and stuff and being like, man, how does forgiveness fall into this equation when so and so gets called out for this or gets persecuted for this? And it's like, just trying to think about, like, how do you navigate that, and what's the healthy way, what's the right way to do it, and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel, for my own sanity and for me to keep living life in a way that's not miserable. And I've been the opposite at many points in my life, where it's just like no control over my mind, no control over faith or what I believe or what my center is. And yeah, it's awful. At least for me, it's just absolutely awful. I'm sure you guys can relate. So now it's like, you know what? We really got to prioritize this idea of coming to peace with yourself and with God. And then I just enjoy it too. Like, I just enjoy the idea of going like, what is happening? Like what am I in this space? What am I doing here? What matters? Why does this matter? What's the future look like? Why does the future matter? What's the past look like? What's my story? What's everybody else's story? Why do I live in Cleveland, Tennessee? How is it that I'm friends with Barrett and Brandon and we're doing this thing? Like, how did the decisions in my life get me to that point? And this is
Mhm.
where I'm at now, and like understanding what chapter I'm in. And then also being like, um, life isn't necessarily a story. So it's like, well, this chapter may just be what it is. But anyway, I'm waxing,
I mean,
philosophical at this point.
I like the way you put that because, like, for me, I've struggled with like finding. I'm a pastor's kid. I grew up within
Mhm.
churches and stuff, and so like at this point in my life, I know that I've just kind of been avoiding all acceptance for something that can help me quiet my mind in a way and help me
Mhm.
like discover myself, I guess, and like the the job that I'm at now has like really like, I mean, my wife has been like, avid like preacher for yoga and meditation for, I mean, I want to say 8 years. Like, I mean, a
Mhm.
good while now, and I've been really resistant to, you know, making that a part of my identity. And I've had this like ego struggle with it that I'm
Mhm.
trying to be more honest about now, and like being outwardly honest helps me be more inwardly honest.
Mhm.
And um so like this job that I've got now is like really emotionally and mentally taxing. So I have to have something that helps me like quiet my mind. And it's like the job I'm in now got me to the point where I'm like, okay, I mean, I've done this in the past, but not really enjoyed it, and have even been pushed away from it at some points with like, I mean, me and Kanan did a guided meditation that was like a mental visual one that like put me in a panic attack, dude. Like, and I've never felt like that, like, ever.
Crazy.
I could only describe it as like I saw, like, like whenever you'd load up the original Xbox and then it was that like orb, like nasty glob thing.
Yeah.
Lava
I
lamp.
saw
Yeah.
that like within myself as like a
Yeah.
darkness, and it just like pushed me out and freaked me the fuck out. And like, I don't know,
Existential,
I haven't
man.
really talked about that too many times, but like that, like
Yeah.
I've had like moments like that that have pushed me away from it. I'm like, no, I don't want to fuck with that. Like, that's too deep. I don't need to dig that deep. No. And where you were talking about like um understanding your story, like, how did I get here? How am I right here in this moment? Like, the job I'm at now and doing the meditation and being more introspective like that has helped me like put together these puzzle pieces of my story and be like, oh, that's how I got to this point, and this is how I got to this point. And like, I don't know, it's just it's cool how like whenever you do start putting those pieces together, you see how like some things in your life come full circle and some things are,
Yeah.
you know, how could I ever
Mysterious.
saw this coming?
Yeah.
And
But it
it's
tells you
cool
about
having that
yourself.
understanding of yourself. Yeah, because like you realize how you are more prepared to like be able to take this on, and how like, you know, this aspect of your life would like 10 years ago, there's no way I would have seen this even to be possible, like at all. So like,
Hmm.
I don't know, it's just cool how it helps you analyze those parts of yourself and like understand yourself better. That's at least what it's done. Meditation's done for me and my job. But like hand in hand, like I feel like those two things have helped me discover a lot about myself that I wasn't necessarily like
Yeah.
aware of. And I'm
Yeah.
only
Well, and it
3 months
also
into
helps
that,
you.
so I'm excited to see how that builds too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can only be in my opinion, well, not only, but it's going to be a healthy thing if you do it in a healthy way, right?
Hmm.
And versus just thinking and just letting your thoughts run rampant at 11 o'clock at night, and thinking about regrets and mistakes and how people wronged you and stuff like that. And I'm guilty of doing that as well. But when it's intentional, right? So like meditation's intentional, prayer is intentional, it's constructive, right? And
Hmm.
there's a goal and stuff. And there's like a parent there in your mind that's kind of like holding your hand as you walk through this thing, or you're trying to figure out who that parent is in your mind, right? That is like, okay, what are my rules for what I'm going to allow myself to fixate on or work on? So that's like a big thing. But I think too, you mentioned like, yeah, with meditation and stuff, is also looking back and realizing like, oh, I've made the same mistake 7 times. Why do I keep making that? And then if you can answer the question, it's like, oh, there's hope. Either A, I won't get in that situation again, or B, um, if I do, I can make a different decision and stuff. And like, if you don't meditate and stuff, you realize like, oh, I just keep doing that same thing again. Like anxiety it has been a thing for me for most of my life of just being like hitting the panic button. Been like the biggest life change I've ever had, just most recently with this job, where I'm looking at it on paper and it could easily be like, this is effed. Like this is so disorganized. There's no training. There's so many systems. There's like this is like the hardest math I've ever learned, but without any clear answer and stuff. And dude, I'm just like walking through it, just like like I'm high or something. I'm just like, it's fine. Like it's fine.
Hmm.
We're gonna and everybody else is like, oh, this is so messed up. The wheels are falling off. And I'm like, okay, what if they fall off? Like
Hmm.
they fall off and we don't go anywhere for a while. Like, what's gonna
Hmm.
happen? We're gonna die. What die? We're gonna go to hell? Like
I've
what's
reached
the
a state of that too with my job where it's like
dude?
you can just there's a great analogy that my boss at work helped me with things like that. When you're sitting in a river, if you're sitting in a shallow river and the
Mm-hmm.
water's rushing past you, right? So you're sitting in the water, water's rushing by, rushing by, rushing by. Those are those things, but you are not the water. Like you are the person sitting there in that moment, and all those things are rushing past you. What's going to happen? They're going to go by.
Mm-hmm.
You're fine. And he put that in a better way, but something about that helped me with that mentality of like, the wheels are fucking falling off. Holy shit, what are we going to do? This is popping off over here. This is popping off over here. But allowing those things to just like pass through you and pass over you and not bring it so
Yeah.
internal to where you're freaking the fuck out about it is like just a super important part where and meditation and prayer have to help you with that because
Yeah.
like you're you're jumping those hurdles in your head to like be able to process those moments before you get to them, so you're preparing
Yeah.
yourself better.
Yeah. And trying to control things in the moment, I found for me is not good. Like it's not, that's creates a lot of problems for me. But when I pray, meditate, um, just focus on things that are what I perceive as good, um, it prepares me to like know how to navigate those moments when they come in a way that's way more organic than just being like, hey, this is bad. I don't like it. Let me make it stop. Instead, it's like, Okay, so we're talking about this. Like I just got notice from work that they want everyone to come in 3 days a week starting January 1. And I'm like, I just laughed at it. I'm like, I'm like, okay, well that's gonna be a problem, you know? And instead of feeling like, oh my God, how am I gonna make this work? What am I gonna do? What if this? What if that? I was like, well, they're gonna have to figure a lot of that out. Um, here's the things I need, and if that doesn't work for them, then that's their decision. But just being able to have that response instead of just the fear response, which lets others control you too when things happen. It lets people be like, listening to other people and talking with them and then being like, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to get fired. And I'm like, let them fire you. Like, let them fire me. I'm gonna say some stuff and just being like, what are you gonna do? Like just having, I don't know, a lot of that, all of that has come for me out of praying and communing with whatever that, we'll just say, force is. And I think the same can be said for meditating, for yoga and stuff like that. But it's just a nourishing, like beneficial for the soul, beneficial for the body. And it also speaks to something that's like really nuts that we don't think about, I think, as humanity often enough, that like literally most of the people on earth think they're communing with this cosmic entity or force or energy, and we all just kind of be like, yeah, people do that. But it's like, do you realize how like wild that is, that like most people think they're in communion, something
Yeah.
out there that exists between spaces and is just
Yeah.
broadcasting feelings and thoughts and signals. Like that's just wild. Like it's a wildly accepted part of humanity. um but then thinking about that and just being like, wow, something big is happening, right? Like one way or another, whether that exists in our minds or we are in communication with that. And it's like everyone's got to make their own choice with what is actually happening, what they believe is happening. But still, it's like, what an interesting thing. Like to me, that's just like a beautiful thought to think about and realize, like, wow, we're like these weird creatures that need something like meditation and prayer or God to be able to like contextualize life and make it tolerable, because otherwise it's just like shards of glass. Like it was like this game Disco Elysium, I played it. There was this one quote in it and it was like, basically the character was in a conversation with something that was able to understand how humans perceive reality. And it was like, that must be horrible. You must be in pain all the time. It has to feel like splintered glass just shattering inside of you. And it was like, yeah, that's pretty much right. But I guess you just kind of get used to it. But that's
Mm.
what, like, for me, life can feel like, is just like this freaking tsunami of just debris and crap happening inside myself. But anyway, so yeah, prayer. Prayer is pretty big hobby. All right, so next topic, Halloween traditions. Who submitted this one? Which of you two?
I did.
Okay, I was curious.
I
You
just
guys
know
go
that
first.
I just know that like everybody has their own experience with something like this, and I'm curious what it is like outside of my bubble.
I got plenty I want to say about this. That's fun, but you guys go first if you want.
I'll go ahead.
All right. I mean, okay, so first of all, Halloween wasn't allowed to celebrate it growing up. Okay. Like that's, and I don't think that's as weird as I used to think it was. We're in the South, and a lot of people deeply involved in church were specific. However, we celebrate it anyway through those church events that always happen the same time of year, at least where I grew up, where they called it Hallelujah Night at my church. And they would literally have like decorations, because would wear costumes, and it was like a trunk or treat kind of. But
Hmm.
they would like the multiple rooms of the church, they would have like people there with candy and stuff, or pre-prepare big bags of candy. I mean, it was basically Halloween without Halloween.
Were you limited
um
on what costumes?
I mean, yeah, well, we never dressed up. I never had any interest in dressing up, which I don't know if that's weird or not. But I think that there was a, when some, put it this way, when someone would come dressed as like the Scream ghost or something, that person would judge the hell out of them, like them and their kids, like dude, I just remember like now if someone was a princess or somebody was a dragon, like a green cute dragon, yeah, totally fine. The moment though there was blood or horror or anything, jack-o'-lantern, judge the hell out of them. Just well, why don't you just go trick or treating? Just I just remember all that. I remember I had all that judgment too. I'm just like, why would they wear that? But
But I
that's just
was I was like in and out of
Yeah,
church as a
temper
kid.
myself here.
Yeah, I was in and out of church as a kid, and with like as many cousins as I have, I'm like always going to like different places too with them. And I've been to several of those where like they had stuff like that, and but like they were like restricted to like wearing costumes or dressing up as somebody from the Bible. So it'd be like,
that's awesome.
yeah,
I
something like that.
never had that rule. I mean, but that's the thing. It's not like the Bible's a picture book. But
No, but
hey,
there
but
but
let's
there
be
are.
clear. Well, there are picture books, but yeah, I know what you're saying. But I will say this: I'm not proud of being judgy with people. I'm just being honest about the youthful experience of being in a religious setting
Yeah.
in the 90s and early 2000s, and all that. But anyway, so we would do Hallelujah night. That was always fun. It was a good reason to get candy, and just spend time with people and enjoy the weather. Then other things like that are, I guess, what was it, Halloween traditions? Was that kind of the thing? Just making sure you have chili in the month of October at least several times. Like
That's a good one.
that's so necessary. Do it. Um, Gotta watch scary movies. You got to. Like you've wasted the month if you don't get at least one or two scary movies in. I don't
Are,
mean I say scary movies. I don't mean the scary movie series. I mean horror movies.
are
Um,
there like specifics that you like
yes,
revisit, or is
yes.
there like an intentional of like watching something new every time?
Uh, if we can watch something new, that's great. But I think you guys might agree. Horror movies are either awesome or they are absolute dog crap. Like some of the newer stuff, like if it's Paranormal Activity 7, like I've seen it, but I'm like I'm more interested in putting on something I know is gonna be good that I've seen before. So it's traditionally movies I've seen. So those regulars are 1408. If you haven't seen 1408, then you've missed, like, to me, one of the best horror movies um ever. It's so great, dude. We got to watch it if y'all haven't seen it. But it's with the haunted hotel room. It's a Stephen King story. It's got John Cusack in it. So good, so entertaining, and it's not horrifying. It's just super thrilling, and it definitely like horror elements. But it's we watched it with the kids, and they love it. That's one of their favorite movies. But that a recent one is As Above, So Below, which is like a found footage horror movie, which I think is super underrated. Another movie is Grave Encounters, which is another found footage one where they stay at a mental asylums filming like a Ghost Hunters episode, but then it turns out it's real, and it's like excellent in my opinion movie. Like it builds the tension so well, and they get locked into this asylum, and then there's deep ghosts and evil spirits, and it's really well done. And then there's one other, probably Event Horizon. That space one's very much like Dead Space. It's just got the best vibes. I mean, awful vibes, but just so good. So yeah, those are my picks. What about y'all? Do y'all do movies Halloween time of year, and are there certain ones that you try to watch or
Yeah,
new ones?
I think some of that has like having kids has definitely changed preferences there. Because I mean, as a
Yeah.
kid growing up, it was always like some kind of slasher or something. So
Yeah.
like I'm a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan when it comes to like
Nice.
the different slasher characters. Like that's like the one main like specific one that I always watched. Um, but like since having kids, it's definitely changed the preference where like now we got to find something that both kids can enjoy, and so now it's more. it's become more basic to like Nightmare Before Christmas or Hocus Pocus or Halloween Town, something like that. To the point where like Nightmare Before Christmas has become like one of my daughter's like comfort movies. Where like that's like one of the few movies that she'll stay in her bed and like fall asleep to eventually. Um,
Yeah, isn't it funny how that works
yeah,
with the scary
cause
stuff?
yeah, it's
Well,
that
not scary, but
that's been yeah that one's it's not necessarily scary, but like to a 3 or 4 year old, you can see how it would be,
yeah.
and it especially her personality where like we didn't specifically like set out to oh she's going to wear a bunch of pink or we're going to stay away from pink, like we tried to leave it like neutral, and she's gravitated more towards all the pink stuff, and but then to turn around and like that be the one movie that she like like latches onto, it's been interesting. um
I want to hear your thoughts too, Barrett, but a couple now that you mentioned like the animated stuff. We get basically there's two that I thought of is Paranorman. And if you haven't seen
Hmm.
Paranorman, you're messing up. Like the great Halloween movie and then
yeah,
awesome animation. But also Coraline. That's a
yep.
movie that that's like Brandy's favorite movie. We've seen it probably 70, 80 times. Like we used to watch it like every night. We saw it in theaters when it came out, which I'm proud to say. And then we've watched it so many times just as like that comfort food. But it's also scary, and stuff. So and then God, there was a scary movie for kid. Oh, Monster House. Great,
Yeah.
uh, great one. It is legitimately can be disturbing. But anyway, sorry, I just had to call those out and say those are ones we try to watch.
I think as a person though, I gravitate towards more towards that stuff now too. I think we've touched on it a little bit in the past, but like when it comes to horror movies, I'm not as invested in those as much anymore. Um, there are a few that stand out, like, but yeah, just in general, like I stay away from most horror movies now. I don't know if it's like an anxiety thing or or what it is, but so yeah, like now
I hear you.
I gravitate more towards kid friendly stuff. Some of it's also nostalgia too. Like I grew up watching Are You Afraid of the Dark and the Goosebumps like
Yeah.
TV show. So there's a lot of that that um jump back and forth to. I think we like
Mhm.
typically like try to find at least like one or two new ones every year, at least to have some variety. Uh, I know it's typically like it's more watched towards Halloween or not Halloween, but more towards Christmas. But like, I think over the years we generally start the Harry Potter movies around Thanks or Halloween and then finish around Christmas. Like if we can't watch them all within like a week or two, we like spread it out across 2 or 3 months.
Glad you mentioned that because that's where we're starting a new tradition this year, and we just introduced Ollie to Harry Potter yesterday, to the movies. I've got the illustrated books up here behind me, and I've tried to like sit and read those with her. She's not as engaged in that just yet. There's a lot of words, a lot of talking, so her attention span's not 100% there yet. But last night we watched Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which is probably my favorite movie of all time. Like I've seen it more than any other movie, just because it brought the books that I cared so much about in like elementary school and middle school to life. Like I started reading those books when I was in the third grade, so like I remember it being really special, um, seeing it in the theaters back in what 2000 2001 whenever it came out. Um, so like now being able to show it to Ollie, I'm like getting what SNL would call verklempt, where you get that nose burn and you start tearing up just because I'm like showing this to my daughter, and things are, I don't know, like her surprise with things and just seeing her reactions to like different stuff in the movie is just so like so refreshing and so, I don't know. It's Harry Potter is a big thing for like us, like me and Kanan, and like I'm just excited to be able to share that with her. So Harry Potter is like definitely one that's going to be a tradition for here on out, for us for Halloween.
And you get to
But
relive it with them when they
yes,
experience it. It's like you feeling what they feel, and it's like, oh, you thought that was gone, but then it happens with your kids, and you're like, oh no,
it,
I'm feeling it again, which is
getting
exactly why
cold
y'all
chills
should have
thinking
more
about
kids like I am. But anyway,
it.
keep going.
uh, like and over like whenever I was younger, I liked horror stuff, not necessarily around Halloween. I don't know if I've ever really like been like, hey, it's almost Halloween, we should watch horror movies. But now definitely like at least getting in the spirit of Halloween around the house, like putting on the Nightmare Before Christmas um movie obviously, but the Nightmare Revisited album, we'll play that on Spotify all the time, where it's just like covers of all of the Nightmare Before Christmas songs. So we'll like get in that like Halloween spirit through like that kind of thing. Um, um, so as far as like movies and stuff go, like like I know Ollie has like all of her favorite shows and stuff. So for like her to get in the spirit, we'll like find the Halloween episodes of some of the shows that she watches and like put those on. And like me and Kanan don't really do scary movies, and I blame her totally for that because I didn't have a problem with them, but she's made me realize my anxiety for them. I'm a lot more aware of my anxiety now about them than I was whenever I was younger. Because I always like it was like getting on a roller coaster. It's like that feeling you get whenever you get on a roller coaster. It sucks until you're at the part where you're like, "We're doing it," you know. So like, um, yeah. Now I don't no scary movies at all. Like last year we watched the new Goosebumps show and I really liked it. And I saw recently the trailer for the next season came out and it looked great. So like there are things that are like in that vein that I'm excited about that are also nostalgic from my childhood. And I really like the Goosebumps show that Disney Plus did. So I'm excited for another season of that. But like, yeah, we don't have splashers and blood and guts and nah, I got it all out of my system at a certain point to where like now I don't know. I don't really like I wish that I could enjoy it because I know that there's something good there and something like to an extent with like some of the horror movies that I'm missing out on, but also like I have to protect my bubble as much as I can, and those things invade my thoughts whenever I don't want them to. So uh I just try to, think happy thoughts and avoid
I'm with
too
you.
much horror.
Yeah, and like I don't know if this holds up to the movies I mentioned, but like I don't like the gore anymore. I don't like watching
Mhm.
people suffer. Like I'm kind of embarrassed of like the time like that we lived through a time where the Saw movies were so popular and
Yeah.
famous. Like I look about like I'm embarrassed to even like talk to my kids about what those movies are like, and they're like, why were they so famous? And I'm like, it was literally
Shock
like you're getting off
horror.
people. Yeah, well, you're getting off to people getting tortured like
Mhm.
like in horrible ways, and it's like I'm not trying to judge people who still enjoy them or stuff, but for me I'm like I don't know, at some point I just realized like I don't like this. Like it's not
Mhm.
scary to me. It's just gross and it's painful, and like I started feeling like a sense of sadness for these people who are experiencing this despite whether or not they deserve it, or despite if Jigsaw's actually the killer. No, you didn't kill him, the machines killed him. I remember that argument and I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Um but to the point of now, what I really like in the movies, like some of those movies, they are gory that I'll still watch, but I'm like seeing it so many times that I'm desensitized to that particular movie. But the main thing I like now is like a sense of mystery and tension, like and getting answers in in a lot of movies, or seeing the monster. Like I don't even care about it anymore. I just want like a sense of like eeriness and mystery and the unknown, and like so more of like a thriller, but yeah, like I don't enjoy like the Friday the 13th movies. We watched Evil Dead not too long ago, like the newer ones, and it was like, yeah, this is pretty painful and these kids are in legitimate danger. I was like, I don't really enjoy that the way I can't. Once
Mm-hmm.
you're a parent too, it ruins a lot of that. But
Well,
yeah. Anyway,
and some of
But
it's
this,
like
I
the level of special effect too. It's like it's so well detailed that like I prefer practical effects, and it's I don't know. There's just a
Mhm.
level of uh like CGI and stuff now where it's like you're essentially like simulating it actually being real
Yeah.
versus like you're coming up with creative ways with practical effects that are somewhat noticeable. Like there's like a charm to that. And
mm,
I think that's part of my disconnect now is that like some of this stuff looks too real.
mm-hmm.
That's a good
As
point.
far as like what like tradition, like we've got that local block party that we try and go to. We try and go to every year for the most part. Like, there's probably been a few years we haven't gone, but since I was a young teenager, I remember going to the block party every year and just seeing all your friends. And I'd run off and go skate with some friends while my parents were at the block party, and like skate like around downtown while all the cops were distracted by that. They weren't like making sure they were kicking people out of skate spots and stuff. Um, but um, that and we used to have I had an aunt that lived off of Centenary Avenue, which is like a popular uh, trick or treating street in downtown Cleveland, and we would uh, go walk Centenary, and we'd hang out at her house and help her pass out candy for a while, and then keep on walking and just go around and do that. Whenever I was a teenager, it was with friends. Now, like, I mean, with Kanan and Ollie, like we'll try and go at least around that area and go walk, but we're wanting to try maybe a different neighborhood or something this year. You hear about like the better neighborhoods that give out more candy, so we're gonna uh try and figure that out this year for Halloween and see if we can go to a different try something we hadn't somewhere we hadn't been to yet as a family. But I just like to make sure because like Ollie gets really excited about her costumes. I just like to make sure that we try and have like multiple opportunities for her to like dress up and go do something Halloween related because that kid would stay in costume until Christmas if we let her. Like she loves dressing up and she loves like playing her little characters and pretending that she's got her superpowers and stuff, and she's super psyched about her Halloween costume this year that it just like I don't know, it gives me so much joy to just see her being a kid and having fun. And so like now at this point, like I've tried I've introduced the idea of like maybe doing some of those trunk or treats just to give her multiple opportunities to do that. But we also have to be like mindful of candy with her this year, as we just had a dentist appointment, and
Awesome.
that was that was a thing. So we got to be careful with that. Um, uh, but yeah, a lot of it, like me and Kane will set out uh, all of our like around the house, small little ornamental kind of stuff that's like Halloween related, and make the house minorly, subtly spooky. You know, we got pumpkins and jack lanterns and skeletons sitting around that are like not we don't really do like big obvious like Halloween outside decorations or anything like that. We'll just kind of have it around the house. That way the house kind of feels like fall. Um, as soon as Starbucks re-enters, brings back out the pumpkin spice, like I'm all in. It's Halloween season. I don't want to see anything but pumpkins and skeletons from this point on. Christmas can take its time. This is like the time of year where like as much as I hate the word, like aesthetically, I just like this time of year the most. I like the colors, like fall. I like um the pumpkins and stuff. So like I don't know. I like to just like chill in this time. This time of year brings me like mental relaxation and peace. This is like a really like and also it's like people say it about spring where they'll spring everyone like comes out of that hibernation state and they're ready to do stuff. Fall is like that for me because
Hmm.
I do not like it super hot outside, not like sweating, doing nothing pisses me off. It's one of my biggest
Yeah.
pet peeves. It's like I ain't even doing shit and I'm sweating like crazy right now. That drives me insane. Um, so like fall being able to like wear a hoodie and go skate or go do things that are active and go outside and like be comfortable, but also like not be sweating your ass off is just the best feeling with that breeze, Um, I like the overcast weather where it's all like just kind of damp, wet, cloudy, kind of chilly, but I don't know, something very soothing about this season for me. So, um, just me and Kane are still trying to find like what works for us every year for it. As far as now, because we've never been on like a annual regimen for like what we do for Halloween, but we do both like come to life this season as far as like wanting to do things and be more active and um even like socially, like it's just a better time of year for us.
I feel
Yeah.
a lot the same way about a lot of that. Yeah, we've kind of like we've been going through phases. At least like Jackson's 10 now, and so we've had like 2 or 3 years like of like phases. We like go through stuff where like we go to the block parties, or my brother used to live in this nice subdivision that like they pretty much shut everything down, and all the houses like participated in something.
Mm.
And so yeah, I think we're still trying to like figure out what we prefer doing. We normally go to like a pumpkin patch or something every year, which just due to you know how busy we've been this year, like we haven't been able to do that this year.
Yeah, that's also like a whole thing too. Like that's something we had been doing too. Is the
Yeah,
pumpkin patch thing, but financially and just time is it's hard to figure that out. Pumpkins are too damn expensive
yeah.
whenever you're going to enjoy the whole like scenario, paying for gas for that tractor that takes you out of the field. You're like, man, gas prices need to go down because these pumpkins are like $15 each. What the hell's going on?
That's one thing that like I from the movies we watch. It's like all of them have their all these movies have when it comes to like trick or treating or something like that. They've got their own like nostalgic feel of like living in like this suburban neighborhood, and being able to like leave your house and just go door to door. It's like something I've always like wanted to be part of, but just for whatever reason, it's never seemed like obtainable. Like when growing up as a kid, like up until I was probably 15 or 16, we lived out in the sticks, so it's like if we wanted to go
Hmm.
door to door like that, like you had to get in the car and like pretty much drive to every house, and it's like a 5 or 6 minute drive between each house. And 9 times out of 10, those houses didn't participate in any of it. And being out that far, like I don't necessarily blame them. I don't think I ever started going to the block parties until probably I was in high school. That's the earliest I remember it. But even that, like I understand why they exist and giving people uh, that experience for people that can't go door to door like that. But it always felt like it almost felt like cheating to an extent of like gonna artificially create this experiment, and we're just gonna like throw everybody together, and so like you don't actually have to like do the thing almost.
Hmm. Cleveland has a really cool backstory with like how our block parties got started and stuff too. So like having some like I've been I've learned a lot about it in the last like few years, but like looking into like local lore and stuff surrounding Halloween, like our block party was something that put Cleveland on the map for a while. Like as far as like getting people into our town and stuff and being like something touristy in a way. Um so like I don't know, it's cool to have that like local history and be aware of it and have been, be familiar with it at least. Um, but yeah, like we have like our own like the whole Tall Betsy deal and like how what the backstory to that even is all really interesting, like local legend kind of stuff. So like No, that whole area that they do the block party in, and the neighborhood I was talking about, Centenary Avenue, just have like a cool backstory that like now learning that probably like 3 or 4 years ago, just kind of added some just I don't know cool deeper lore to like the history of being at those things.
Yeah.
Other
What?
than other than that stuff we talked about, I mean, games are a big part of it, of course. So,
Mm-hmm.
Resident Evil, any of those games, Dead Space, Alan Wake now too, anyway, and playing Silent Hill too right now. So I love horror games, like, and to
Yeah,
me
I actually
they're
love
the
horror games
scariest.
too.
But
I
it's
can engage in that.
yeah, but it's also it's not like photorealistic, like, and there's
Right.
not this
I'm
same
in
depiction
control
of
and can stop when I want.
yeah, and there's not this depiction of like suffering necessarily. I mean, sometimes there is, but it's not as real as how these movies portray it. But
the
yeah,
the
just
games give
anything with the
me
vibes.
the games give me like more anxiety than like the movies do though, depending on
Hmm.
like
Definitely the anxiety
Got too
factor.
close.
the yeah, the one I played the most was Outlast, and now like I
Oh,
don't even want to
that's
think
a rough
about
one,
playing
dude.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Outlast. I couldn't stick with Outlast.
I
There
couldn't
was
beat
too
it.
much scariness without any sense of like being able to defend yourself.
Resolve. Yeah,
Yeah.
I played Outlast Trials. Probably the last horror game that I did play was Outlast Trials, and it's a multiplayer Outlast game where you're put in a scenario, and there's multiple different scenarios that you can be put in with a group of like 3 or 4 people. I played with it was
Mhm.
3 of us playing, but that game, I mean, I react a lot with horror games, and I found out whenever I had roommates that like if I was ever to do like let's plays and stuff, I need to do horror games because like I don't know, I get really into it and I'm really like I don't know, it's a whole thing because I
Oh yeah, the Silent Hill
we
was
used to
great.
play yeah
Mm,
silent or
I enjoyed it.
I remember playing like Slender the Arrival,
Hmm.
and that I mean that game's not super scary but it's anxiety the whole time, like it's just or Until Dawn, played through that
Hmm.
like um but like I had an audience for those things and it just like see because like roommates would just gather around and give me the controller, all right, play. Same with PT. Like it just
Mm.
I don't know. I enjoy that, but I don't know if I like intentionally play anything around Halloween. If we're talking about Halloween traditions. But I do like horror games more so whenever I guess like if there's people there to enjoy it with me, I probably other than like Resident Evil games or like Silent Hill, the ones that I've like grown up playing, I don't I don't really seek out a horror game to play just for fun. I'll
Mm.
play it if like if I don't know if like I don't know if there's someone wants to pitch a horror game and like you play it, we'll watch kind of thing. I'll like to do that, but I don't like seek them out in a way because I it is a lot. It is a lot on me mentally.
Well, if it's got to be action adventure, I think for me too. It's got to have like a sense of like progression, like that all games
Hmm.
have, and good controls and some type of combat. You know, when it's like my son's gonna want me to play Visage. I don't know if you guys have seen that one, but it's inspired by PT. They basically went this indie team made their own PT, and it's really scary, but there's and really stressful, but there's no combat, you know, and you gotta like manage like keeping your fuel in your lighter and taking pills to make your sanity go down and stuff. It's like it's cool and good, but like I do not get any sense of satisfaction. It's more or
Hmm.
less a walking simulator, you know, and
Yeah.
it's definitely scary, but I'm like, I'm just not really having fun. Like I gotta be able to have some action, some kind of shooting or something. But no, I do seek them out though. Like I love, I love scary games. After Dead Space changed me forever, dude. I was like, oh man, I was like, that was horrible. I want more. Um, so yeah,
Like, yeah.
Evil Within's a great one. Um, lot of lot of horror movie in the good way vibes. But yeah, Silent Hill I think is gonna be one of my all time. I swear to God, that's one of the series I have loved my whole life and never freaking played. Like it's so weird. It's like I'm like, oh yeah, Silent Hill's so cool. I'm like, nope, never picked
I
one
get
up. I
that
mean, I
though.
did. What's
I get
that?
that. 'Cause I said I get
Yeah.
that because I loved it long before I played it, and then whenever we moved in with the roommates I was talking about, they had, I mean, their physical library of games was ridiculous. Like that, they never traded anything in. Like, and they
Oh
both worked
wow.
at GameStop. So like living with people that had both worked at GameStop and are huge gamers, and they both had anything you wanted to play was on a shelf somewhere. So like, and they were always really welcoming to like letting us like use their stuff. And I remember playing Silent Hill 2 on the maybe the 360, or if not the Xbox One, but it was the 360. I think there was a 360 version of Silent Hill 2 somewhere.
Yeah, there was an HD
Okay,
version.
yeah, that
Yeah.
I played that, and that was my first actual Silent Hill. I remember always loving the idea of Silent Hill before that, and seeing the movie and like liking the movie,
Yeah, I like the movie a lot.
but yeah, I was like that too, where I had a fondness for it. That and Fatal Frame was one that like I really liked the
Ooh, Fatal
idea of,
Frame.
but never played. And then when I did play it, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." Somehow it feels nostalgic, even though I've never touched it before this point. I don't know.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Hmm.
Silent Hill is like one of my first gaming experiences, and probably
Oh man.
why I probably don't play many horror games. Like on the
Dude, it's horrible.
original PlayStation, like when we
So
first
bad.
got it, there was like a demo of Silent Hill that came with it, and I was probably like 6 or 7 at the time. Um, so, and I don't have like very good memory of it. It's very vague, but I just remember like one of the scenes from the demo was like you're in either a hospital or a school or something, and there's just like dead children walking around, and that's like
Hmm.
freaked me out ever since. And I just that's why I mostly stayed away from like horror games in general.
Yeah. It's a good reason. I mean, Silent Hill was like one of those series where like I wasn't even gonna risk trying to have it in the house because if my parents saw it, it would be more than you're grounded. It would be like, long conversation about like why would you even want to look at
Yeah,
this is
and that
horrible.
at the time that happened, it was kind of compounded by also watched. I think it was the second Pet Cemetery, and
Mm.
one of like this kid gets ran over by like a semi and like comes back from the dead. So just like
Hmm.
PTSD of like dead children.
Yeah,
So that's neat. Well, guys, it's that time. Um, I thought it was a good episode. I enjoyed talking about this stuff. We had some
yeah,
cool
for sure.
peaks throughout it, but yeah, I guess we're gonna wrap up here. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the month. But yeah, love you guys.
Yeah,
And
everybody have a
anyone
good
who's
Halloween.
watching, yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Please comment if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah. See ya.